All right, super. I would like to welcome everyone to tonight's session. This is Free Minded Academy classes. We are doing this and recording the message every Wednesday at 8 South African time. It's obviously minus 2 hours for GMT and plus 1 hour for East Africa time. Welcome, kings and queens. Today's discussion, we're going to focus on the very big and a critical component uh, of Africa's plight, the issue of land and African territories. So, our discussion is going to be based on land. How do we restore? How do we restore Africa's sovereignty as far as the land and the natural resources that comes with the land is concerned? I know that we've always been, that has been a thorny issue. I think since centuries and centuries in time, Africa has been battling with a to control its assets, its natural resources assets, back to benefit her sons and daughters. So the whole world has been competing to gain that access to our natural resources, to our land. So what do we do in this generation? How do we respond to these issues as a generation? What is our way forward concerning this? What can we do differently in this generation? So I think that is the journey that we're going to attempt to have a discussion. And of course, we love to invite many stakeholders to participate in this discussion. Those who would be listening to the recording of this discussion, it's an important discussion. So feel free to inbox us and engage. But if there's anything that we want to achieve in this hour, we want to trigger a revolution um, that will transform Africa to being what we want it to be in this generation. I think every generation has a responsibility, as a mandate, because you see, we have to look back and say we have to appreciate and acknowledge what our parents have achieved or what they have done. We have to look back and acknowledge what our grandparents did and achieved given their situation. We have to embrace who we are and celebrate what our ancestors have done in history to bring us here. So if we look back and appreciate that, we did not just appear on earth, we did not just find ourselves here today as a generation. It is a result of a whole host of things that have taken place in previous times. So there are a lot of great things that have happened to bring us here. There are a lot of things that are terrible that have happened that brought us here. So we have to reflect on both directions and say the first thing is that we are grateful that we find ourselves in this generation, in this hour. So it's no longer about where the previous generations of humanity have failed, or perhaps have failed Africa. Perhaps it's now about us as a generation. Granted that we look back and say previous generations have done what they did, but we are here now. So how do we, organize ourselves differently so that we bring once and for all a global solution for Africa and for her sons and daughters? her kings and queens, so that we can achieve. I don't think we will ever have global peace. I don't think we will ever have global justice until such a time as Africa and African plight has been acknowledged globally, and the issue of Africa has been attended to by all of those who have contributed in the plight of Africa. So there are many things that we can highlight in this hour that contributed to finding ourselves here where we are today in Africa. So today, if we work our way backwards in history, and we will first say today Africa battles with neo-colonialism. That is the policy of all governments. In the nature of that policy, it says we have divided the world in two parts. So there is a developed nations and there are underdeveloped nations. So there's global north, there's global south. Now, global north, all of them agreed on a policy that says let's all work together and collaborate to go and peace and divide Africa for the resources we need to create our economies. That's what the global north, policy is today. So they call it neoliberalism, in America and in the Britain, they call it that. But what underneath that policy of government, and they teach it in university. In fact, it was birthed in the University of Chicago. This concept that they call it free market economy. Let the economy decide and decide its course. Let no government interfere, and let not the masses interfere, but let the people who are wealthy, let the few wealthy people dictate and control the market. So in other words, we do away with the kings, and we are doing away with democracy, the majority rule, but we give the reign to a few wealthy families to rule and control the earth. That is what neoliberalism has done in the era of democracy there where we find ourselves. Basically, they have made the markets, the free markets, to dictate the course of life for everybody else in the global arena. Now, the question now that we find ourselves as a generation is, how do we deal with that? Of course, nobody has said neoliberalism policy is evil and wicked in its nature, because everybody is swearing by it because it works for the global north. It has made them rich up until now. It has made them build their economies at the back of free labor from Africa and cheap natural resources from Africa and currencies that have been manipulated and controlled by them, and the prices that are controlled and manipulated by them. Everything, all the matrix and the KPI works for the global north. So of course, they will swear by these policies of neoliberalism. And, that's why we find ourselves in this dilemma where we sit in. So how do we overcome that as a continent, as a people of this continent, as Africa? We know we have had victories over, colonialism. Everybody agreed that this was an unjust thing, an injustice against humanity. It was crime against human rights. And, thankfully, they also agreed that slavery is a an atrocity against human rights. So it's an injustice. Now, however, we are still faced with neo-colonialism and neoliberal policies controlling and dictating terms in governments. So, because of that, then it affects the land issue. Because if you look at the territories and the land issues across Africa, who holds the mining rights to our minerals and the land that has all the minerals? Who controls those territories? Who holds rights in terms of our natural game reserves? Who controls our game lodge, our game? All of those hectares and hectares of game reserves and conservation that is there. Who controls central business districts of cities? The CBDs. Who controls the buildings that and all these high-rise towers, infrastructure that is there? Who owns the technologies and the IPs that generate our energies, all the power stations across Africa, all of the technology, the machinery and the equipment. When you look at the railroads infrastructure, who owns those rails? Who owns the designs, the IPs, the intellectual property of it? Who builds those trains and locomotives and those wagons? And when you look at the logistics on road infrastructure, who owns the technology? All of those earth moving equipment in mining, in road construction, who owns it? Who controls it? Whose IPs is it? All the tools of trade, we're talking about technology that support industry, communications. Who owns this satellite space, fiber optic, cloud storage, servers that are necessary to connect and create a global, community and trade. So who controls these things? Who controls shipping? All the harbors, the docking, the cranes, all of those ships, vessels, all of those storage, whether for coal or whether for container terminals, car terminals, all kinds of cargo that moves in and out of our ports, whether by air, those airports, who controls, who owns Airbus, Boeing? So whose industries are these? Because at this point in time, all of them, they say only 1% of families in the globe control more than 50% of the global assets. Now, those assets are privately owned and are attached to the land, because that is why we are talking about land and territory. When you understand economy and understand that land and natural resources are key, they are in fact the bigger element of the economic equation. In other words, there are no business, there's no trade without land. Whatever you want to produce, whatever goods, services you want to provide to a people, to a nation, you need natural resources. You need the land, you need water, you need all the trees, you need the minerals, be it the air, you need the gas, you need the oil, you need all the uranium, you need the cobalt, you need what you can grow from land, the cocoa, the shea butters, all of these things you need. You need land to raise livestock, chickens, rabbits, goats, cattle grazing. It takes 5 hectares per cow if you want to, be a farmer. You need space, you need land. If you wanna do nature conservation and have, elephants and have all the giraffes and have all the antelopes. You need space, natural space. If you want to build a lodge, you want to build five-star hotel, you need land, and you need rights and access to land. If you want to build airports, you want to build harbors and cranes. So there is no economy without land. So we might as well say, this is the major. If we look at the factors of production in the economy, we might as well say, land is really the most significant one. It's a first lever that we need, and every state that is sovereign needs access to its own land and its own natural resources, so that we can extract benefit. We can extract benefit from these things first and foremost for the benefit of our people, the citizens of that jurisdiction, first and foremost. And then abundance, then we can trade with neighboring jurisdictions. So that is the concept. So, land is a big issue in this discussion. And then the second element, of course, that is needed as a factor in the economy is human resources. We, of course, need hands and brains of human beings, because it is their skills, it's their talent, it's what they bring that actually puts value in the natural resource. Because actually, without human beings, without human resource, gold will not have value. It will just be a rock that glitters, it will just be a rock that glitters, that shines. It has no value. What makes gold to be valuable, it's actually human brain. Because human says, look, I like this stone, I want to wear it on my neck, I want to put it on my finger, I want to decorate my body with it, or I want to build something with it. I want to build circuits, electronic circuits with it. Gold application. Practically today, most of the gold that we are mining, it's only good to look at it. It glitters. Whether we mine it and turn it into bricks and put it in a vault, it's just good to look at. Whether we turn it into jewelry, we wear it around our neck as necklaces or all kinds of things, wedding rings. It's just so that we look good. That's really what this yellow stone can do for us. But we use it now and again in electronics, when we build these circuit boards. So we use this gold because it has its applications, in many applications. But in the main, majority of all the gold that is unearthed find itself in vaults across the globe, and it finds itself in safes, and it finds itself being worn, or artifacts that are made of gold. Our ancestors in Egypt used to make all kinds of things, sculptures of gold, so that's the thing. So now, without a human brain and a human hand to make tools to extract that gold and gather that stone and burn it and process it and purify it and shape it into whatever useful thing a human being wants to do it, only then it has value. So that means the two basic factors in the economy, equation. It's literally just land, natural resources with human resources. Human brain next to a natural resource, then you are creating wealth. You are creating wealth for any human being. You are creating wealth. So that's the only way you can create wealth. You need to give a human brain and hands access to natural resources, which is land. its water, so that we can then create value and create wealth. So there's no other way of having wealth. So if we say Africa is poor today, what do we mean when Africans' natural resources are in abundance? If we say Africa is poor today, what do we mean when Africa has, more brains and hands than anybody else in the world? Because if we talk about markets, what really decides whether a market is valuable or not, it's lucrative or not, what defines whether the market is worth investing in or not, is the market share, the size of people who are interested in what that market produces. So if there's 2 billion of us here in Africa and we all want to have that gold, then we create the demand for that gold, and therefore we decree the value of that gold, what we are willing to do to acquire that gold. So the human brain is still the one that puts value onto the gold. So without the demand, it's just nothing but a rock that is meaningless. Now, that means those are the only two factors in the equation of economy that are just and that are fair. The others that they call capital, ability to print money based on the natural resources or tools and equipment, that stuff comes from a human brain. It's a human brain that prints a paper and says it's worth this. And it's a human brain that makes any tool or equipment that can be used in the process of production. So that means really we're not talking about the idea here, the entrepreneurship, because that's a human brain. We're not talking about tools because human hands make tools. We're not talking about money because human brain can print that money and decree its value. So the only two factors that decides whether a nation is wealthy or not, it's only and only measured on two components: how much human resource you've got and how much natural resource you've got. That's it. Those are the two factors that decide how valuable a nation is. Because if you're a nation, you have got all the land, but you don't have population. Now, you don't have a market to sell whatever valuable things you can get out of that. You also don't have hands and brains that can extract that value in that land. I mean, you may have, all the fish in the sea, but if you don't have people to consume that fish or to go and, go fishing, then, you can't extract and enjoy the benefits of having an abundance of fish. In fact, there's no value then in that fish. So what brings value to fish is the fact that there's human resources, human people, that are human, who actually need the fish for food or for any other benefits that they need it for. So now, if we look at that, we then are leveling the playing field, because the reason there is poverty across the globe is because a few clever families decided to control and print money, and they call it currency, fiat currency, and they take that paper and they give it to Africa and say, give us gold. And Africa uses its human resources to extract and dig that gold, and uses its land to extract that gold, because there's an opportunity cost. Instead of me digging gold for you, or instead of me using my land for your mine, for your value, I could have chose to use that ground for something else. I also could have chose to use my time for something else. Now, so there's a real opportunity cost here that Africa loses. So we are giving our livelihood, our very life, because if you give your time for labor, you are giving your life. Your time is valuable. You, human being, human life is valuable in Africa. That's why we value Ubuntu. So we value human life in Africa. We value human life more than we value gold. So we care more about a human life. So therefore, think about it. The global north decides to send papers to Africa, then Africa must forego the use of land and allow this multi-international corporation to come and take that gold, using our labor, using everything, even our logistics, because it's us who drive those trucks, it's us who drive those trains, it's us who control and operate those cranes in all the harbors, it's us who fly those planes. Now, you are using our time, our life, you are using our natural resources, you are just printing paper. Then when you've given this paper to us, you manipulated the price for this paper that you are giving us. And when you manipulate this price and the value, you make me give you my life, because I have to now take my time and serve you. And then I must take this gold and give it to you. Then when you receive this gold, you suddenly change what is value. You decide now it's no longer value 1 unit. Now it's 1,000 times. And now you use that to print more money and more, paper to pay me to dig more gold and to provide more services for you. And then all you do, you take this and you tweak here and here, do effortless stuff using AI and tools and technology. And then you ship it back to me, many times the value I gave you. Now, that is the problem with Africa. That's the problem with neo-colonialism. That's the problem with neo-liberalism, because it makes someone else come, print money, and come and take for nothing. So no value for value. There's no exchange for value in that equation. It actually makes Africa poor and poor and poor, because as long as you forgo the use of your land, you're planting sugar cane that you're not gonna eat or not gonna need, instead of planting your potatoes and tomatoes and raising your crops, you're planting sugar cane that you're gonna export for someone else's economy, and then you ship it all the way so that someone has tea and coffee at your expense, at your life. That is not right. So I think the big issue with the question of land and territory has been polluted and manipulated by the policies that we've adopted, economic policies of governments across the globe. And unfortunately, it's been instigated by Britain and America, and therefore the whole of Europe follows suit with that agenda of neoliberalism. So this is the enemy number one for Africa. So Africa has different, mandate. How would we do it differently as Africa? If we were now to redo and decide on our own policies as our own sovereign states, and organize ourselves to speak with one voice and make a pact and a resolution today that 2024 2025 step one for us as a people is to organize ourselves. We need to achieve solidarity in this very hour. As we speak, we need to achieve solidarity, because solidarity is our first step to our wealth. Because when we organize ourselves and make a resolution and agree that no, we need to change the economic policies that have existed thus far in the world. They have not worked for Africa. Not a single stream of an economic policy has worked for Africa. Instead, every Western economic model that has been ever proposed from the beginning of time until now has been about extraction and leaving Africa naked. So, therefore, Africa takes a resolution today that we're gonna boycott any of their economic systems. Now, what will we do instead? What would we do instead when we organize ourselves for solidarity between 2014 and 2024? So the first mission is that let's collaborate, let's pool our resources together, let's change our tune. We do not have to work to build other people's economies. So the resolution of solidarity is that all of us and our sons and daughters, you have to spend your valuable labor, your valuable life, your skills, who you are for your own continent. First and foremost, we first prioritize ourselves and our people in the continent of Africa. I think, charity begins at home. Every family is allowed to organize themselves and have solidarity. We've seen this. That is why America consolidated the 53 states into one United States of America. That is why they have collaboration with Canada. They work as a bloc. That is why European Union was formed, because it does not make sense for these small states to be independent and not to streamline and organize themselves differently as a bloc, so that they streamline their currency, they can trade, their communication leverage, satellites, fiber optic, they have now shared intellectual property, labor. So you see the issue of human resources matters, because if you consider the size of economy of Botswana with under 2 million people, and the size of 320 million people, which is USA population, you're changing the game. But if you have small amount of people, then who are you going to produce value for? Who's going to make demand on that value? So in principle, the way forward for Africa, the first step, the very first stone, is solidarity. And we can do that because it's in line with of who we are in our DNA. Ubuntu is based on that premise. Ubuntu is based. It's our culture. It's who we are. It's in our DNA. So that means we will value our people first before we value profits. We value life and we value one another. We value people first before we value profits. So that means Africa needs to do something different. We cannot pursue profits at the expense of creating poverty of our people. We can't pursue riches. What's the point of having all the gold unearthed and sitting in vaults when I leave my doorstep and exit my gate, someone is sleeping there in a tent? A human life has nothing to eat tonight. So what is the point of me building space exploration missions and spending billions going into the moon if I cannot take care of the life that I have here? Why am I looking for another life out there? Why am I even looking for more resources out there when I already have unearthed so much gold that is in the vaults, so much assets? In the US, they say probably there's enough housing in the US right now that, for every citizen, there shouldn't be anybody on the street in the US, because an average, US family, they 6:1 issue of accommodation. Everybody can live in a nice, house, in a bed. Everybody can have shelter. I assure you. Look at all the infrastructure that exists there that is vacant. It's the same across all European territories. It's like that. It's called greed. When a few families have so much assets but they just packing them. They're not using them. They imagine that they just want to pile them and pile them and pile them and pile them, and then keep ranking each other. Who's the big boy now? Who's number one in the world? Oh, I have the biggest empire. I have the biggest empire. Since the Roman Empire, you know, that has been the nature of global north. They have wanted to take territories and go at all costs. So profits before life. That's why they will kill, steal, and destroy. That is why their types of economic policies cannot be right for Africa. There's not a single government in Africa that can prosper under policy and economic policies and framework that are designed by global north. It is impossible. It has never been done, not in a single state in history. Never has Britain made anybody else in Africa rich. Never made any island. Just go where the footprint of Britain has been. Go to Australia. What's happening to the Aboriginals there? Go to New Zealand. What happened to the natives? Go to North America, the Caribbeans. What happened to the natives there? Go to Canada. What happened to the natives there? Let's go to even Europe itself. What happened to the natives there? Because African natives were the first in all 7 continents in the globe. What happened to them? Let's open those files. Let's talk about it. Let's go back to history. Now, how can such a government and such a people be even allowed in this generation to dictate terms on the global arena when they are a minority? They are a minority in the globe. I mean, we live in a democratic dispensation now, so majority must rule. So who are the majorities in the world? Solidarity. It's why we're talking about majority. So if you look at the globe, of the 8 billion people, if you look at Africans, the 1 in 4 is an African. So there's 2 billion of us. 25% of global population is us. And in the labor market, 2 in 4 is an African. So we are the one contributed more than anybody else on the globe to build economies, both with our natural resources and our labor. We are the one building everybody's economy. We build their tobacco industries. We build their sugar industries. We build their whatever industry. It depends on us and our labor and our minerals and our labor. So that's what it is. So we as Africans should have been the wealthiest of them all. Wealthiest of them all. So that should have been the reality for Africa. Now, if you also look at China and India, so if you then look at BRICS member states, we make global majority. In the world, we make global majority. That means solidarity means if we live truly in a democratic dispensation, that means we should be having a bigger say in United Nations on those democratic forums. We should be having a bigger say. We should be making a bigger contribution to all the World Trade Organizations, World Health Organizations. We should be making bigger contribution because we carry the biggest populations of humanity, human brains and hands, that actually make the world go around. Because without China, without India, without Africa, if you just take those 3 out, take China out, take India, take Africa out, there is no economy in the world. All of the industrialization and luxury goods of the West are made in China. And all of the Silicon Valley programmers, AI, artificial intelligence, are done by India. And all of the natural resources they need to build that is in Africa. And they need our cheap labor in Africa. So yes, whenever they want to come and build factories here, they come with conditions. You can only sub-assembly our IP. You know why they do that? Is because they want to pass pollution to us. Global warming is caused single-handedly by the global north. They are accountable for all the atrocities on the earth in terms of global warming. They are accountable in terms of wars on the earth. World War One, all of its expense and its cost, its havoc to human life, its destruction to property. World War Two, its destruction to human life, its havoc to economies of nations. And now World War Three, because it's World War Three right now. What Israel is doing with Palestine, what Russia is doing with Ukraine, what all the Middle East, the Yemen, Iran, all of these wars with America, proxy wars of America. The common factor is America and Britain and her allies and France. Now, those three have probably caused the greatest of the atrocities. But we must add others in that mix, because Belgium, Germany, they are also guilty. Rome, Italy is also guilty. The states that must be questioned, that are perpetrators, you must go and question the Vatican, Rome, its impact and its role in this Western ideologies and philosophies for Africa. And question all of the people who sat in the Berlin conference and decided what they decided without, consulting with us, the true heirs of the land and territories, because each nation was actually nicely divided space to have sovereignty, to thrive and organize themselves with their families, so that they live in peace. Nobody had to leave their place and go and plunder someone else. That is called theft. It is not allowed. Even murdering life is not allowed. They are trading. They want this gold so bad that they are willing to kill everyone, all of us, for it. Now that is what must stop in this hour. So if Africa has to do it differently, we have to achieve solidarity. And that solidarity means we have to appreciate that who we are as Africans, we value life more than we value profits. That's just the first rule. We will not kill anyone for gold, nor for land. We have abundance of land. We don't have to be killing each other for it. And we are even generous as a people that in our abundance, we have been given Europe every resources they have received up until now, up until this day today, for free, for nothing that is worth what we've done. We have given our life, our labor. Every hour, every second of a son and a daughter of this continent has been designed to build Western economies. We have made them fat. We have built them and made them fat. Now they are full of pride. They want to dictate everything. Now they're devising ways of creating weapons of mass destruction. They are busy researching nuclear weapons, bio weapons labs everywhere. They are busy doing that. Why are they doing all of that? They are scared. They are scared. They want to maintain control and supremacy of the globe. And we think they are a wrong master. They have been a wrong master until today. They have never done a single good thing for Africa, not a single one thing. There is not a single nation of Africa that is happy, that the ancestors are happy. There is not a single territory in the world where the natives are happy. Go and ask the Aboriginal in Australia. Go and ask in Canada. Go and ask North America, the Caribbeans. Go and ask everybody in Africa. Even those who still work there today, they are not living in conditions that are worthy of us. Even our doctors and our engineers, they run from here and go there. They live in terrible conditions. And, they are treated as second-class citizens even there. Now, all of it must change. And it changed for us when we achieve solidarity in this hour. So therefore, African solidarity is really no longer a luxury. It's no longer an optional thing. It's a mandate that as you hear this voice, as I'm speaking to you now, Today you make a resolution that it's all or nothing. The solidarity must be achieved this very year, 2024, 2025. Therefore, what would it take to achieve this solidarity? It starts with one. We are proposing that if I speak to 20 people in my network and teach them to talk to another 20, then one will become 20, 20 will become 400, 400 will become 8,000, 8,000 will become 64,000, 64,000 will become 3.2 million. We will break a million at speed. If we do that 7 times and drill like that 7 times, we will hit a billion. If we hit a billion, that means we can touch and hit the whole 8 billion of people across the globe and achieve solidarity for global peace. And for once, we can get rid of poverty. There will never be a single person, a human being that will sleep on the street. Never. When governments have all the money and the assets and the power that they have amassed, and few wealthy families, 1% of the global families control more than 50% of the global wealth. That can never happen. We have enough abundance so that every family can have a proper home, proper land, and a piece of land where they can produce their own food, raise and grow their own livestock. And everybody must use their gift and beneficiate natural resources. If you're a fisherman, go fish. If you know how to raise game, go raise game. If you want to work with timber and make stuff, furniture, build houses. If you want to make, but you have to do it in a way that does not destroy the environment, because greed is what causes global warming. It's what destroys the natural environment. It's when you mine more than what you need. It's when you create waste in processes, in your production. Now look at waste, look at global waste, look at plastics, packaging, look at all of the scrap metals. Look how much wasteful industries, the markets, when they are left unchecked. Check how many bodies of old obsolete cars. You know why industries are changing versions of cars every year, every 2 years? There's a new model, there's a new model. You know why changing phones, iPhone this, iPhone that, Samsung that, Samsung. They are creating waste. They are doing that at the expense of future generation resources. There is no reason to create a phone that you must change every 2 years. There is no reason for that. There's no reason to create a car that you must change every 5 years. There's no reason for that. In fact, there's no reason for you to have 10 cars per person. There's no reason to have 5 phones per person. There's no reason for you to have even 5 houses per person. I mean, come on. What happened to hotels? What happened to Airbnbs and lodges? People can share. What happens to public infrastructure, public transport? Why are we even all having cars? Why are we all driving our own cars? And why are we even driving, 8-liter engine cars? You are one man, but you're driving a truck. It's a V8 or 5.5-liter engine. You are blowing gas for everybody else at the expense of everybody else. You are consuming, you alone, energy footprint, water footprint. That is 10 times you. Now you're talking about scarcity of resources, natural resources. You're talking about global warming. Whose problem is it? Who's been mining up until today? Isn't for your own economies, global north? Now, this is the conversation that we need to tell the global north. Enough is enough. We are done. It's a dawn of a new era. African solidarity is now. Our ancestors spoke and said Africa must unite, and the unity is now. And then we despise them. Ngwame said exactly just that, but the European infiltrators convinced a whole host of these African Union leaders and put them in their pockets. It's again allowing markets to dictate terms. We've allowed these neoliberal policies and we allowed it to go unchecked. This is what it has done. It has bribed our politicians. It has kept them in protection. They've used their media, their propaganda machines. They control now the world. They rule the world at the expense of democracy. True democracy, where majority must rule. That is the rule of democracy. That's what it is. So I think what we're gonna park it at this, we don't have to go to war or fire a single bullet to change the global world order. We don't have to do that now. We just have to boycott. We just have to take our labor away from industries that have us. We just have to boycott governments that have transgressed us, that have done an injustice to our people. We just have to boycott them. We just have to isolate them. We call it sanctions, isn't it? It's a legal way of addressing injustice. It's just boycott them. We will stop working for you, giving you our labor. We will stop shipping our stuff to you until you now do reforms that we want you to do and ensure global peace and no more greed and no more poverty in this hour. Overnight, we can wake up the next day, nobody has to be poor. We can wake up the next day, not a single gun should be fired in the world. In fact, we can scrap all the guns, destroy all of nuclear bombs and all of those biolabs, destroy them and burn them down, because we don't need security risks in our. What are we afraid of? Aliens. We've never seen an alien come and attack us. Since we've all been on Earth for the last 1,000 years. Now, why would we justify the kind of war tech we're building? Except you are building it for other human beings. Now, that is being a bully. And bullying is not allowed. It ends now in this generation. And that's the kind of message that we need to achieve solidarity and speak out against the West as far as this. They have caused these atrocities and are prosperous at the expense of our people. And that must come to an end. And we must restore. So solidarity is the way now, so that we work together like that and collaborate. So I'm gonna pause before so to allow some contributions into the discussion. Yes, feel free, as we normally do. If you would like to comment on this discussion, perhaps open the mic. We will identify you, and you can contribute. We value every opinion. It matters. So the floor is open. Thank you. Do we have anybody who would like to jump in?
Hello, King. I hope you can hear me.
Okay, now I can hear you.
Professional, thank you so much for the wonderful presentation. I think on my side, there's not even much to add. I think you have emphasized solidarity, which is the tool that we have today as the masses to change the course of the history. Because what is, as you pointed it out, I mean, what has happened is that we have left the leadership of the world in the hands of tiny minority for a long time, and we go to elections to vote for them, to expect change, and we don't see something meaningful taking place in our lives, especially from them. So maybe it's the high time that we then begin to organize ourselves as the masses in numbers, groups of 20s, community of 50, community of hundreds, and then begin to put in motion all the ideas that we have expected politicians to do for us. I think we have a lot to do, and we are capable of a lot of things, but we just need to realize it. And this guy, I think his name is Noam Chomsky, said it very well. He said, I mean, 1 million things are possible for people to do. Depends on where they concentrate their efforts. So that being said, I said thank you. And let's see who else will be able to jump in. I've joined the conversation a bit late, but I think some of us here have been there from the beginning. So feel free to bring your minds, your thoughts on the topic, what you think about it. It's going to be helpful to all of us. If we don't have volunteers, then maybe we can go according to the list. Then just your name, maybe, and where you are, and anything else that you want to mention. On the list here, I do have Coco, Chacho. Sorry, I can't say Queen or King because I may make a mistake. I don't want to make a mistake on that. But if you can just unmute yourself and tell us where you are and anything else that you have in mind. Otherwise, if you just tell us who you are and when you are, that's enough if you have nothing else to say.
Kavala, I'm surprised you still don't know that.
Sorry, Maki, your line is breaking. Go again. Sorry.
You, am I audible now?
Yeah, very well, very well. Go ahead, please.
Yes, I'm saying I'm surprised. Moninga Nangai, you still don't know that I'm king. Every time you say, not sure whether it's king
No,
or queen.
King. No, what happened is I'm using a different device, and I'm unable to identify. Sorry for that.
That's all right. Don't
Thank you
worry
so
about
much.
it. Okay. This is a
Yeah.
court, as in Lhotla. In Sesotho,
Okay.
Lhotla is not court where we hold people in front of the judge and ask them to defend themselves. The court in ancient African tradition is where men congregate and discuss matters of the country, matters of the states, matters of the community and society in which they live. And every man has a word. Everyone, regardless of how big or how small, whether it's king or commoner or whatever, chief, son, or anyone else. So I've sat here and listened to my brother talk about democracy. Democracy is a bastardized version of our own governance system of Ubuntu that we know. Had the voice. We don't do majority talks. No. Every man has a word. And we don't see that happening. In fact, now is the richest man. The richest man, not even the majority, is the richest man. You are right. It's not just minority, it's the richest of the rich who have a final say in what happens. Whether the world bends or thrives, is those with more money. And I like it because you have uncovered the flaws of capitalism. Capitalism is a system that most of us have been taught or tutored economics in, and that is our undoing. Majority of us are going to neglect it, abandon it, ban it, because under capitalism is who has the most money. Capitalism always makes sure that the owner of capital profits at the expense of labor, at the expense of those who don't have capital. And that's wrong. But what they have done successfully is to demonize socialism, which is nearer to what Ubuntu is. Communalism, which is what we practice in Africa, where we know that I cannot eat and my neighbor doesn't eat. When I have 5 cows here and my neighbor doesn't have any, I can loan him a cow for his children to have milk. I can loan him, I can help him plant a field or something to produce something for his family. So I think the topic for tonight was about land, is how do we lose our land. I think you talked about the Roman Empire and British, French, Germans. What you have to realize is that they are all descendants of the Romans. Everything has come from the Roman corrupt Roman system. The Romans learned from the Greeks. The Greeks learned from the Egyptians. The Egyptians, who were egalitarian and the most educated, probably the most civilized of all people that have walked this earth so far, taught the Greeks, and the Greeks went and bastardized whatever they taught them. But that if that wasn't bad enough, the Romans did worse. So it's all about greed. The system is still there. It's the same system of lords, where the lords have everything and the lords have servants working for them. That system, they have made sure they propagate that system here in the West where I live. I live in London, by the way, King. Is there again in Africa. They have defended it. In Africa, they have defended it through religion. They've defended it through government. They defended it through education. You know, the three mottos of colonialism, you know, civilize them, Christianize them, commercialize them. So commercialization is that. It's making sure that we are their interests. And it's funny, even someone who is not even educated in economics can read this. But we, as the economists, unfortunately, we are spewing this poison because we have been taught or told that you can profit by the sweat of your brow. Then you tell me, who are the most hardworking people and why are they not making the most of the money? Is we at the bottom of the chain. The Africans is the hardest working, but his labor is cheap. And that is how it's meant to be the premise of capitalism. So back to the question of land. They came here and took our land. They took our land because they said we were not occupying it because they had guns. Now they have promulgated the laws. And it's to those laws that they are now saying protect private rights or access to property rights. But what about us when they came in and took what belonged to us? They will argue that it was public. It did not belong to anyone. But it was our land. And now is the proceeds of crime. And we want it back. We want it back. I agree for solidarity, but I think we want our land back. It's important. We want our land back, but it looks like we are losing even more. We are losing land in Kenya. We are losing land everywhere where people are selling land to the Arabs. And in South Africa, where they are allowing the Europeans to come in with money, when the poor black Africans are being seen as criminals. They are being seen as criminals. The criminal name is meant to demonize the African. And as my brother said in our earlier talk somewhere, the Africans being driven out of Africa. They want Africa without the Africans. And unfortunately, our brothers here, especially in the diaspora, in America, everywhere else, they are all taught about how difficult Africa is, how dangerous Africa is, how much Africa is full of diseases. Is to make sure the land is empty. The land is emptied of Africans. Because Africa is the richest continent. But unfortunately, because we are divided, we do not unite under one purpose, under one unity of purpose. It's going to be difficult for us to get that back. So I do support the motion that solidarity across all the 6 regions of the AU which have been used as a Trojan horse. The AU itself is being used to weaken us, just as religion was used to weaken us. And the same democracy is being used as another Trojan horse, and capitalism. What we as African people have to do is to wake up. We have to teach everyone we meet. Let them know how much we have been weakened. Religion has been used to weaken us. Democracy has been used to make us look like we were savages. We didn't know anything. We knew better. But they bought that system as a Trojan horse. The lobbyists are coming through democracy. But under our system, that was not possible. And they know it won't be possible for the lobbyists to exert so much power and influence. Hence, why they'll make by all means that we don't implement any other system. So I know my brother said we want us to go for solidarity across the world. That solidarity can only be possible if we start somewhere. And we do have the Sahel states now. Let's start there and then spread outwards. Many thanks. I yield. Thank you.
Do we still have King Kabbalah? Okay, I saw King Obey open your mic, so the floor is open still. Or anyone else? Okay, there we go. King Obey.
Good afternoon, kings and queens.
Greetings.
Yes. Thank you very much for such an informative presentation from all the kings and queens I can hear. Thank you very much, King Fanelo. And yes, I think this is the right time to mobilize each other. And I think the best way it will be the approach that will be done on an individual basis, and we work our way up the ladder, because it's very unfortunate that we are living in a world with a well-organized system that has thrived over the years, and it has reached where it is today. And we are what we are, and we are where we are today because of what the system has actually done to us. So if the system was not the way it is today, I think we were not going to have even borders in Africa, so-called 50-something nations in Africa. As many as we are, from different tribes and ethnic groups in Africa, we were going to be a different Africa without those artificial divisions that were orchestrated some few years ago. So it's very sad that most of our brothers and sisters, they are still asleep, and we are seeing things happening even on the ground. The recolonization, as the last speaker has actually said, the recolonization of Africa is already happening. We are seeing what is happening right now in South Africa, in Cape Town. We're seeing what is happening in Namibia. South Africa is a very good example of recolonization. We're seeing what is happening in DRC. And you can mention all these countries where stability is something that is so scarce. So I just want to encourage the kings and queens on this platform that we need to work harder, find each other wherever our fellow brothers are, and encourage each other and work hand in hand. It's high time that we really come together and fight the enemy, because the enemy is living amongst us. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Sorry about that. I was struggling with my phone. Yes, this device is giving me problem today. Well, almost beyond time. I don't know if there's anybody else with a comment before we give the mic back to King Fanelo to give us his final conclusion. All right, no, thank you so much. King Fanelo, over to you, please, for last word.
Right. Thank you so much, Kings, for your contribution. We value every input and thought. In fact, you are right, King Koko. The solidarity is step one. If you notice in my discussion, we have to achieve solidarity 2024 and 2025. We need to break that billion solidarity in numbers. What is then possible with numbers? I will leave that to your imagination, because any industry that is measured in terms of its wealth, it's measured based on its market size. Now, any political party that holds power through the ballot is measured by numbers of votes it receives. Now, any law that, in fact, I love what you are saying. You're saying, you know, the way it was done in Africa, every person in the community, if you know, amadoda sesibayeni, when the assembly is by the gate or by the city gate or by the crawl, everyone is allowed. Everybody can be heard. Everybody can participate in this discussion and resolution. In fact, we already had democratic approach of governance, despite the fact that we picked our elders to be the chiefs and to be the kings, just as a representative into other territories and jurisdictions. But every community, every tribe had its own protocols, in its own channels. It has its own youth, you know, women, it had its own sons, and then it has its own elders and the elderly women, you know, playing their roles in the education, you know, infrastructure of it all. So in short, we will not be able to regain our land and our economy without our solidarity. Now, solidarity is the first step. You know, you said it right. Land was taken by force. We can restore it even without firing a single gun. It's simple by boycotting our labor, because right now we are the ones working for these multi-internationals, isn't it? It is us who are now house niggers in those corporations and telling everybody else and enslaving everybody else. It is even us who are unionists who are deciding the minimum wage today, isn't it? So we have these free markets who are bribing everyone. They are bribing unionists. I mean, Cyril was a unionist. Our president was a unionist. No wonder we are paying minimum wage 4,000 rand in South Africa, when in Australia it's 40,000 rand. No wonder our doctors are paid less than Australian doctors, even if they are working in Australia, even if they're working on the soil, because we've got people who have been bought by this free market, including our politicians. Now, guess what? Our judges, now you talk about judges, the laws that govern all the territories and jurisdictions. Who wrote these laws? You know, who put these laws? Who put all of these things? Because in Britain today, land is not owned by anybody. It's owned under the king, and everybody else leases it. So, I mean, this is Britain. We are now former colonies of Britain. So why is it now suddenly okay in South Africa now we must protect private interests. When they say we protect the private ownership of land, they mean themselves. You're protecting them. So actually, everything is a smoke screen. Unions are a smoke screen. Political parties are a smoke screen. It's a smoke screen. It's something to fool us, to think we have liberation and freedom. But actually, people who put and appoint those politicians, the free markets that decides, they protect the markets. You heard the GNU when they ascended to power, they said, we were worried about the markets. So we are worshipping the markets. I swear that the markets are the beast of our time. We have to, dethrone that king. That beast must fall. So the reality of it is only possible when we achieve solidarity. If we achieve solidarity in these next 2 years, I swear to you, there is nothing that we can't do. There's nothing that will stop Africans. If 2 billion of us across the globe have solidarity, there is no government, there is not a single jurisdiction that can deal, and that would be a problem for us. There's not amount of bullets nor soldiers that can deal with us. We are anyway in the majority, and we have young and vibrant, birth rate. It is estimated by 2100, Africans would be the majority globally. The trajectory of birth rates for Africa exceeds everybody else. Everyone is declining, but Africa is shooting straight up. It never stopped. It never bent. It's just shooting straight up. Now, that is something. It means as long as Earth remains, African economy will always have brains and hands. We'll always have people and markets. All we have to do is consolidate and take our own market. African market, that 2 billion is our market. It's our livelihood, it's our asset, it's our wealth, it's our capital. Those 2 billion brains are our IPs and knowledge. They should be building wealth and asset for Africa. That's the solidarity we're looking for. Let no one now be a house nigger no more. Let no one now be a puppet government anymore. In fact, we must boycott puppet governments. We must boycott house niggers. All those elite that want to be house niggers, they must go to Europe. They must pack and go. And then we want our sons and daughters back on the soil of Africa. And we don't want to frustrate them with passports and border issues. We want to remove those borders and remove those passports. We are Africans. We want to choose our own path. We do not want to be told. I mean, come on. The clothes I wear, I'm told by someone else. The language I speak, no, I'm a man now. I cannot be fed by nobody else. I have to work for myself and produce my own food, produce my own medicine, design my own car, and design my own tools. The way I think it's proper and it will not harm the environment. I am also intelligent. We are all intelligent. We are actually kings and queens. We are not meant to be slaves and masters. Who told you you can't innovate and create? Who told you that you can't build and own your own plane? Who told you? Angeti, that's a lie. That's the propaganda machine. That a narrative that is used that Africa, it's the same white supremacy spirit that said we are monkeys. That in fact, even science says now, you talk of Homo sapiens. This thing of evolution only was burned because of white supremacy. They rather will not accept that the first people on earth were African. They rather say they were species inferior or something else that is not evolved, because they want to discredit who we are and our ancestors were. They were the first in all 7 continents. That means by right, Africans everywhere in the globe, they actually own the earth. If we talk about doctrine of discovery, therefore by right, Africans were the first to discover all the continents. and the resources on those continents. We were the first to own and trade in gold, in silk, in all kinds of things. You should just study Carthaginians and Phoenicians. Those were Africans, and they are the ancestors of Europe. So we've been told a wrong history and a wrong narrative. Now we have an opportunity to rewrite history and speak a different narrative today. So let's mobilize kings and queens. Our lives depend on it. Let's mobilize like there's no tomorrow. We have to do it. 2014, 2015. Let's make a commitment. We will rock the boat in this hour. Siabo, thank you so much and have a good evening. Back to you, King Kabala.
Thank you so much, King Fanelo, and thank you very much to everyone for participation. We hope to see you next week again for another edition. Very interesting. For now, we say great, peace and love. Have a good one, and see you next time. Bye-bye.
Siabo.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Siabo, Marcos.